Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's Q&A. This has actually been a topic that's been on my mind since day one of the quarantine, and I found a wonderful participant in Caroline Snyder, who is joining us today. She is a financial coach and founder and CEO of Verity Advising. I will admit I keep wanting to call her Verity Advertising because I come from radio, it happens. But it's advising. Just to give you a little tiny bit of background about Caroline, she did start her career in public education, which we love our teachers, as we all know. Even I loved my high school teachers. But that's because I wasn't rebellious like my sister was. So she taught high school, fell in love with financial literacy, which we may have to ask her about because that's such an interesting thing to fall in love with. But she did return to school and get an MBA and worked in the financial industry. And now she owns and runs and is the president and full on in charge of Verity Advising. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Caroline, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
and you're not the only person who sometimes wants to say advertising. You're in good company.
Oh, good.
But you don't want me to do your advertising. It would go very badly.
No, but I do actually want to talk. Honestly, I will tell you, it's sort of a selfish conversation we're having today in the sense that finances are a sensitive topic for everybody. I mean, even if you're making millions of dollars, finances are still a sensitive topic. So with the quarantine and the quote unquote shutdown, although I don't love that word, lots is going on for people financially. And I just really thought we needed to take a moment and talk about money. To be perfectly honest, let's talk about money. So one of the things that I realized is we are all in different places, all of us, in terms of finances. So I have not lost my job. I am still employed. I'm still working full time, but I'm not loaded. I don't have a huge savings. I didn't before this situation. I probably won't after the situation. So I realized there's one, right? There's not one magic thing, but I did want to talk about maybe some recommendations that you could give to us that we could apply. And one of those things is, and I don't know that there's an answer to this question, but we're all going to be on some sort of limited income right now. What do you think, or what is the industry standard on what to pay first, right? What is most important, and what do we focus on first and then worry about the rest later?
Sure. So I'll answer it. I'm going to answer this in a couple of different ways. So it's obviously going to depend on your situation. So there are people who have not lost any income, got a stimulus check, so they actually made more money for a month there. And then there are lots and lots of people who are unemployed, and then there's like everywhere in between. If you are experiencing any version of hardship, the first thing I recommend doing is going through your bank accounts for the last month and making a list of every single bill you pay. So whether it's internet, TV, phone, mortgage, rent, whatever, just like long, annoying list. It's probably gonna not feel great. You're gonna be like, I paid for that. And you've probably never actually seen them all in just one slide.
Right.
Not super fun, but make a list. And then, it's also not fun, start calling. So most companies are willing to be flexible in some way, shape, or form right now. If you are a homeowner, there's actually federal law that if your mortgage is backed by the federal government, which most mortgages are, they are required to let you defer. And deferment does not mean I'm not paying this month, but I'm paying double next month. Deferment means you're adding time onto your loan. So if you have 20 years left of your loan and you defer for 6 months, you now have 20 years and 6 months left of your loan, and your payment shouldn't change. So there's been a lot of confusion around that. But that is law. If your mortgage company says no, they are in violation of federal regulations. So that's a big one. If you're a renter, unfortunately, it's kind of the wild, wild west. It totally depends on where you live. I'm in LA. In LA, evictions are not allowed, but there's no like rent assistance that's happening. There's been some talk of some stuff, but nothing's happened. So that's kind of all over the place. However, if you're having trouble paying rent and you live in a like a single family home or duplex, a building that's probably owned by like a single human or maybe a family, that single human or family very well could be getting mortgage deferment right now. So they may be more willing and flexible to work with you on paying less of your rent.
Oh,
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's very helpful. I unfortunately live in a big building owned by a corporation. They don't care at all.
Yeah.
But I think there probably are buildings who are nicer. Ours is not.
Yeah.
So those tend to be, rent or mortgage tends to be the biggest bill that everyone has. And then just start going down your list. If you're in a position where you're able to pay all of your bills, but not pay everything else, then maybe it's some of the everything else that gets left aside for now. A lot of those everything else categories are not even things that you can do. So a lot of my clients are like, well, I would have been getting my hair cut, or I had this appointment to go get my nails done. Like, those things aren't happening. So that's money saved. If you're in a financial place where you're able to still support those companies and those organizations, a lot of times those are little like mom and pop places. By all means, like buy a gift card, pay for something up front. If not, let it go, and that's okay. Yeah.
Does it make more sense to pay the bigger bills? And like, for instance, here's my thought process. And again, this is not my area of expertise. That's why I need you.
Sure.
So I realize that at some point, if people defer their rent, and let's talk about rent specifically, that doesn't get deferred. My apartment complex has worked out payment plans for people that can't afford to pay their rent right now. But what I am fully aware of is those payment plans were going to be a balloon payment at some point. So does it make more sense to put as much money as you can towards your rent and work out a deal with the lower bills? Or is it make more sense to pay off all the lower bills because you can afford to do that and then do the balloon payment on your rent? Does that make sense?
It's going to totally make sense. It's going to depend a little bit on your relationship with all of those bills, right?
Okay.
So if you have a landlord who is being flexible and you know will continue to work with you and who you have a good relationship with, maybe let that one be like, do what you can. You know, you're having conversations with them regularly. They are aware of what's going on with your life. That's okay, and pay the little ones. Unfortunately, most renters don't have that kind of relationship with a landlord, right?
Yeah.
Like, they have a bad reputation for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
What are you
I was a landlord for a minute, so just gonna throw myself under the bus. I don't think I was bad, but I didn't love it. I did not love that job. The smaller bills, though, because they're smaller, they're probably more likely to be flexible with you. So for example, like phone is a big one. People are all of a sudden spending all of their time inside and just using Wi-Fi. So you're not using the data that you normally would use. Call and see if there's something where you can lower your data plan for a certain period of time. Some places, car insurance companies are just doing automatic reimbursements for places they're not driving. But if you didn't get an automatic reimbursement, call. They're like, I haven't stepped foot in my car in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Can you help me out?
Oh.
These companies need you to stay loyal. They want you to be with them when the coronavirus ends, because economically there's going to be a lot of shakeout. So just because it's a big company doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to be hurt. And if a company gets a reputation for having been really bad and unkind to its customers during this time, my expectation is that they're going to have a really hard time rebounding after we get out of whatever this is and whatever new normal looks like. And who knows, I'm definitely not an expert there, so I won't go there. But it's important that, you know, you keep a good relationship, and it's important that they keep a good relationship with you. You matter. And if they're jerks, tweet about them.
Yeah. Oh, what a great idea. That's what I'm like, yeah. I've done that before in my life, by the way. I have. Yeah. I've had some instances of dissatisfaction with a company, and I did tweet about it. So, all right. So here's what I want to talk about. Again, this is sort of a personally driven question. But,
I love that.
I know, right? So it's interesting. You're right. I'm saving money in a lot of different areas. I live in Las Vegas. I go out to dinner a lot because I live in the food capital of the world, really. You know what I mean? And I like to go out, but haven't done it in 4 or 5 weeks. My out to dinner budget has dwindled to zero. But now, mind you, I've spent a little extra money at the supermarket. But what I really like help with, wink wink, is some practical things I can do to help me save that money. Like, what should I be doing? What do I need to look for?
Yeah, so it's been an interesting 6 weeks. My clients, some people have ended up being like, wow, I'm saving so much. I have so much money at the end of the month that I don't normally have. Other clients are like, how am I spending more than I spent before? Yeah. And so there's just a really wide range. That's okay. Ranges are normal and good. If you're right now, kind of regardless of where you are on the financial hardship spectrum, if you're trying to find ways to save, I recommend doing, basically it's a financial audit on yourself. So one of the things I always talked about before pandemic life hit was doing a money diary. I actually have a template on my website, verityadvising.com, if you want to check it out. But a money diary is great because you're tracking everything you spend every day on what. So you're saying, like, today I spent $7.95 on a smoothie. Good grief, was that smoothie worth $7.95? I didn't do that because I haven't left my house. So you're tracking every single little thing. Right now, if you're saying, like, I really want to save money now, it might not be worth spending the time first to do a money diary, because a money diary is in real time. Right. It might be better to start with pulling up all your credit card statements and bank statements over the last month. And I would recommend, if you can, printing it out and actually highlighting and color coding in different colors. If you can't, I think you can probably, a lot of PDFs online you can manipulate, but some way of keeping track of, this is necessary and it is important for my life. This is not necessary, but important for my life. And this is not necessary and I can let it go. Before you actually start color coding though, take about 5 minutes to brainstorm what you really want out of your lifestyle. Like, what is really important? Just because it's things that people have always told you are important doesn't necessarily mean that's really congruent with who you are. Right. So sometimes when people start this audit process, they start getting rid of things that are actually the things that are keeping them sane and happy and healthy, but they're things that other people might not think are worth spending money on and have been vocal about. This is a very common issue. Or kind of vice versa, like, I'm going to keep this thing that I don't care about, even just because I feel like it's something I should do. So ground yourself first and, like, who am I? What do I actually want? What's important for me? And then start making the thing. And anything you can get rid of, whether it be a subscription that just takes like a second to delete, or something that's habitual, which is going to then take a little more work on your end. The good thing about habitual spending is that all of our habits are fluid.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a perfect time to make some switches.
No kidding. Yeah. You said it earlier. I've used this term a billion times now. It's the new normal. And what will my new normal look like? It's almost like we're getting, not that I think it's worth doing it this way, so don't misunderstand me. I'm not happy that it's happening in this manner, but now's the time to readjust and look at things that I really value, which I agree. And that's not just financially. I mean, that's universally in my life, but financially, I've noticed, and I understand why, it is money that makes this world go round. It is what we need to survive. And so I get that this is a great time to evaluate that. And that's why I was like, gosh, you know what? I mean, I think I know what I'm doing, and I've already learned a bunch of great things from you. So now I see why my sister loves your class so much.
And money's emotional. So like all of those things of saying, these are the things I now value, and I've realized that I value them because they've been taken away from me, or because I'm seeing them in a new light in this particular time in the world. Usually those are connected to money in some way.
Yeah.
So some of my clients are saying like, oh, I'm realizing that I didn't appreciate visiting my parents or my sister or whoever enough. And so they're actually spending some time being like, I'm just going to tuck away $5 here, $10 here, $50, how, you know, kind of like whatever they're able.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go make this trip when I'm able to.
Right.
And have the money ready to go.
Which is lovely. It's funny, I've done that, literally that exact same thing. And I do not like to travel. I'm going to tell you up front, it's because of the cats. And everybody's like, the cats will be fine. I'm like, I'm not worried about the cats. It's me. I don't want to leave the cats. So I'm not necessarily a huge travel fan, but I do love to send joy, wink, wink, through the mail. So I have already started my Christmas fund. And
amazing.
So I have a budget that I stick to. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk about that in a second. I will tell you, I use YNAB and I love it. My sister is the one that turned me on to it. And in there, I'm like, I'm budgeting for Christmas. So I budget all of my money through YNAB, and whatever's left over could be $4.58. The other day it was $27 and some odd cents. All of that goes into the Christmas, right? And I'm like, it's a savings no matter how I look at it. But so I get it. Now I will tell you this. I have been poor before, right? I have been unemployed. I have, as difficult it is for me to admit this, I have been the recipient of financial gifts from my friends and my sister because I didn't have a job. I have been there before.
Yep.
And to say it was difficult is an understatement. So for people that are in that situation right now I can say it from my perspective, which is yes, but it'll end and you'll come out of it and it'll be okay. What financial, if there is anything, how do you help people not stress out so much about that? Is that something that you talk about in your classes, or?
Yeah. It is really tough. And I think like pretending like it's not tough or life altering is belittling to the situation.
Mm-hmm.
I think, so there's kind of two things, right? There's the action items, what can I do? How can I mitigate the situation? And then there's the emotional toll. And I think often when we're talking about money, we collectively as a society ignore the emotional toll and we focus just on the action items. That's not super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
so whenever you're in a place of distress, what happens almost immediately is your mindsets around things that are fragile for you start deteriorating. And then those mindsets make it harder to do the action items. Mm-hmm. So for most people, money is an area of, at best, like a little bit of discomfort,
Mm-hmm.
and at worst, way, way farther there, right? So if your money mindset is fragile, and by money mindset, what I really just mean is like your outlook on money and your relationship to money. So whether it's saying like money is good, money helps me, or money is bad, if you have money, you're evil, or money is a painful thing that I don't have enough of and therefore makes me angry or makes me shut down. Whatever that mindset is, if you're working on it becoming a positive thing and there's stress in your life, then it's almost definitely going to be shaken.
Mm-hmm.
So that cycle, I think, is really important to recognize. So step one, I'm like action-iting it just after. I was like, don't do that. But step one is recognizing this is an incredibly stressful period of my life. Yes, I will get out of it. Maybe I don't see how I will get out of it yet, but doesn't change the fact that it's stressful now. And therefore, my emotions are going to be impacted. And when my emotions are impacted, it's harder for me to make decisions in a logical way. And just recognizing that that is a cycle that every human has
Mm-hmm.
is really important.
Mm.
The scenario where you were talking about with yourself, which thank you for sharing, people are not transparent enough about money issues, and I appreciate that a lot. You had a support network of people who were able and willing to give, which is incredible. And a lot of people have that and a lot of people don't. So if you're in the boat right now where you're in a position where you're having to take gifts from friends and family and people who love you, even if that's uncomfortable, thank them. You'll figure out a way to repay them. I don't necessarily mean repay them in money, but you'll figure out a way to repay them in the future when you can. And maybe it's actually repaying them now with doing things that are helpful for them. Most people who give in times like that don't actually want the money back. So make sure that that's really clear from the upfront. There's certainly been many situations where someone's like, oh, I thought that was a gift. They're holding it over me. What's happening? Like, know that. And if you're not in a position where you don't have that help, then it's about tapping into outside resources. So you can, do your financial audit, figure out what you can live without from, figure out who you can call and start negotiating with, and then start looking into local resources. So the federal government, as of now, has kind of done what it's done for individuals. There's nothing else coming down the pipeline. Maybe that'll change. I don't know. If it does change, I will be a talking head on Instagram, being like, blah, 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 this is what's happening. So if you follow me, I'll tell you. But states and local organizations are still trying to figure things out. So tapping into those things. And unfortunately, because they're really localized, I don't have like a blanket suggestion of where to go.
Well, actually, it's funny. I actually do for Nevada.
Good.
Or specifically Las Vegas. I'm going to work on Reno because we love Reno and we definitely don't want to leave them out, or even Northern Nevada. But so I will list those. They're listed on our website, but I'll also list them on this broadcast. So they'll have that. Great. That's actually a great idea. And it's so funny how some things are so obvious and yet we're so caught up, right? I get so caught up in making sure I'm doing my job and whatever that I forget these little things that are available. So yes, that's a great idea. Thank you. And I will list the local here for us. But it's interesting. It's so funny. I'm just going to tell you another personal thing. And it's like, not every time I talk to my friends that have helped bail me out of my previous situation. And this was, I admit it, this was like 6 years ago. But to this day, I figure out a way to work it into the conversation that I owe them money. Because it's, that's a thing for me. I know, that's a thing for me. I'm like, because I'm fully aware of how they have me. Now, I'm not quite rich enough to pay them back in full at this moment, but I do get that. And you know what? And they're the ones that are really like, would you stop worrying about it? And I'm like, no, actually, I can't. I'd love to, I can't. So I think we worked it to a situation where now we both understand how we both react to the situation. And again, it is having good people in your life. But I will also tell you that I feel strangers can be good people in your life too. So,
Yeah.
and this time right now, have you not found, I have found that it really is amazing how many people are ready to help in any way they can. And it's different, right?
Yeah.
I had a barbecue in my apartment complex the other day. I can't necessarily give out a lot of money, but I had some ribs in my freezer and I'm like, let's eat them. Right? Let's have a meal. And so I invited the apartment complex in my area. I'm like, if you're here, you don't have to get near me. We'll cut them up. I'll put them on the grill. Come and get them. So yes, you're right. There are different ways. And just part of my thing is I care. Like I've never met you before and I already think you're spectacular. I will tell you I'm a bad judge of character because I like everybody, but you know, but I just realized there's so many people in our lives that we may not have realized the role they'll play. And now is a good time to just be okay with where you're at, right? Get to a point where you can be okay with the fact that maybe you're out of work for now.
Yep.
And your unemployment check hasn't come through because I know that that's an issue for a lot of people.
Huge issue.
And that so many people are in that same place as you. It's not a stigma, right? It's not because you were a bad person or you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
I'm really hopeful this, because it's such a huge swath of the population, it helps break down some of our stigmas that we have over losing jobs, having economic turmoil, because it's so not your fault.
Yeah.
And the systems were not set up to help you in the first place. So, I feel really good. I think it's also a good reminder for those of us so my husband's in film, all productions are shut down. He's unemployed.
Yeah.
I'm still working. We're living on a lower income than we are used to. He is someone who has not gotten an unemployment. I'm like pointing to him.
Yeah, I get it.
Office over there. It's over there. So our income has been shut, but we're still, because I'm still working, there's still a little bit of flexibility that we have. And I think it's a good reminder, this conversation is a good reminder for those of us who still do have a little flexibility, be like, okay, so what can I do? Is it giving directly to a friend who needs it? Is it giving to an organization who needs it? I'm not going to be able to answer that question for you, but I think for those of us who are in a position where we have some flexibility, it's sorry to be like a little preachy, but I think this is the time where you give.
Agreed.
Monetary or not.
And there's so many ways to do that, right? And that's what I want people to remember as well, is there's just so many ways. And even I've noticed, so I started this actually before the pandemic, but I took Tuesdays, I pulled out my phone and I said, who haven't I called in 5 years or more? Honestly. And I'm like, these people mean something to me. I might email them, I might Facebook interact with them, but have I talked to them on the phone? And I just started dialing numbers. And I found that at the end of these conversations, here's what people say to me. Oh my gosh, I needed this so badly. Thank you so much for calling me. And I'm just like, really? Because it was pretty easy. I never say that. I'm just like, simple, easy. So actually, there's two things I wanted to cover before we run out of time. And or actually three. And one of them, I don't know. This is actually one of my previous questions that I had written to you. And that is fees, extra charges and fees. Do you think it's a good thing to do to maybe see if we can call? Can we call and ask those people to not be charging us those fees?
Totally.
Is that reasonable or not reasonable?
I'm a huge fan of calling all of the time, pandemic or not. Most places have very long wait times to speak to someone. So like when we were talking about earlier, that list of like, who do I need to start calling? Order it by order of who's gonna, like, the due date, so that you're not spending time on something that's due in a month. With the fees though, yes, call. The worst case scenario, they say no and you still have to pay the fee. You know,
Right.
like, that's not a terrible worst case scenario. Best
Right.
case scenario, you just gain some money.
So let me. So how about that approach? Like I'm sometimes believe you get more honey. You may get more bees with honey as opposed to vinegar. But sometimes I put my foot down. So would you call and say, hey, look, I realize all of us are in the same place, but would you be willing to do A, B, and C? Or would you say, look, you're a piece of, you know what, and I'm done with you unless you cut these fees?
Yeah, I would start with the honey approach. For one thing, think about the person you're talking to. So the person who you're talking to has probably nonstop that day picked up phone call after phone call after phone call of someone who's in financial turmoil and is trying to get help and is very stressed out. And so like that job is, on a good day, not pandemic, hard.
Yeah.
Pandemic call center life has, I mean, I cannot even imagine. It's got to be so stressful. When I'm working with clients, one thing I've noticed over the last 6 weeks, like, oh, I'm more emotionally exhausted after a client session now than I was 2 months ago. And it's because it's more emotional. And that person in the call center is in the same boat. But they don't get to be like me, where I'm like, oh, I just don't do more than 3 of those in a day. They don't have that choice. So start with being nice. If they're being jerks, especially if you've been a customer for a long time, you have a lot of leverage. So ask to speak to someone else. Under non-pandemic times, I normally say, make an excuse, be like, oh my goodness, my doorbell just rang. Sorry, I have to go. Hang up, call again, because you're going to get another human. If you were on hold for 2 hours, maybe don't hang up and call again. Try to get to a person, but you can always ask to speak to someone else. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Good to remember. I think that's true a lot of times. So, and I just wanted to clarify something, because you said it earlier and it made perfect sense to me, but it was my last question about the easiest way to keep track of your expenses. That's the highlighter thing, right? Where you're like, everything in red is stuff you don't touch. Like, you got to pay it. My rent is red. I mean, it's up to you, whatever you want to do. Is that your easiest way to keep track of what expenses you're putting out there? Am I saying that right?
So that is the easiest way of reviewing what has already happened to make an action plan for how to change things.
Okay.
Ongoing, I'm a very big believer that in order to have a healthy money life, like a healthy relationship with money, that means an emotional relationship, but also a situation with money where you're opening bills, paying bills on time, not missing a payment. If you get a letter from the IRS, you open the letter from the IRS. They're usually less scary than they seem.
Right.
And if they're really, there's ways to deal with that. So all of those, just like kind of a keeping up with money life, making sure you're saving, getting closer to your goals that you're working towards, eliminating debt, all of the things. That takes regular practice. So it's so funny. We're like, oh, I want to run a 5K. Very few people say, I want to run a 5K, and then just like roll out of bed and try to run the 5K. I mean, I know it happens, but most people are like, maybe I should go on some walks first. Maybe I should then turn them into some walk or jog. You know, like, there's a process, and it takes practice to get there.
Yep.
And then we then look at money and we're like, oh, I'm just going to get rid of my credit card debt.
Yeah.
I'm just going to wake up this morning and get rid of my credit card debt. And weirdly, that never works.
Yeah, go figure.
Go figure. So whenever you're talking about like tracking where your money is going or making decisions on where your money should be going, it takes practice. I love a money diary. I think most people should do a money diary for at least a month, once or twice a year. Most of my clients, we do money diaries for 3 months at a time to start, because you get so much information from them and you learn so much. And the template that I have on my website has spots for like marking emotions, which is an incredibly helpful thing. So you see like, oh, every single time I pay my car note, I get angry. Is it because I don't like the interest rate, it's too high? Is it because I don't actually think the car is worth that much? Like, what is going on there? So being able to make that note and move on. And most of that work, it's not like you're gonna spend all day, every day doing it, but 30 minutes once a week can do wonders.
Awesome. So you've mentioned your website. I don't know if you would mind, will you just talk to us briefly before we have to go about you and your class?
What I do.
Is also, to be completely honest, my sister takes her class and my sister loves this class. And I was like, well, shoot, let's connect and find out why. Now I'm seeing why. So I would love for you to share how you can help
and she sees the same background in my office every time.
Yes.
So funny. Everything's always virtual. Yeah. So I'm a financial coach. I say I'm a coach. I don't use the word advisor. It's actually funny. My company name is Advising, but I don't call myself an advisor. And the reason why I call myself a coach and not an advisor, and why the coaches that are part of my organization that work with me call themselves coaches and not advisors, is because a coach implies that I'm there with you, I'm helping you, I'm giving you expertise, and I'm teaching you how to move forward, but I'm not telling you what to do. So at no point will I be like, you must do that. My job is to figure out, what are your goals, what's going to work best for you, bring those options to you and help you implement them. An advisor, and this is not true of all advisors, but traditionally advisors have been like, here's the plan, go do it. And strangely, humans don't really do a good job of that follow through. So a coach is like, here, let's create the plan together, let's do it together. That's just a little semantics, but I think it is helpful. I work with people either one-on-one. So I work with people, I've always done virtual, it's always been via Zoom. So nothing has changed in that regard with pandemic. I actually love virtual for money situations because we can do screen shares, and that is so helpful. So I work with people one-on-one. Those are individual sessions totally tailored to your specific goals. And then I also have what's called the Verdi Money Club. And the Verdi Money Club is a group. This is what Steph's in, the sister's in. This is the class, and it's a group. Oh, okay. This is a group coaching series that's every other week for 3 months. And it includes group time, but it also includes some one-on-one time as well. And it's really designed to help you kind of level up your full financial picture. So spending, saving, budgeting. Budgeting gets a bad rap, so sometimes I just say spending and saving instead. Same thing. Debt, credit, investing, all of the things. So some people like love a group. Group's a great fit for them. Some people are like, you couldn't pay me to talk about money in front of another human.
Right.
Group's a bad fit for you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I was shocked that Steph told me it was a group, but she likes it a lot. So, and I found when it comes to money, my sister, she's a much better judge of character. She doesn't necessarily like everything like I do, but she's the one that turned me to YNAB. I told you I used YNAB, and oh my gosh, it's to say it's been life altering it's it has been life altering. I look at money so differently prior to doing it. I'm not saying it's because YNAB necessarily. I feel it's one of the many tools that has come into my life, but every day I would be depressed and unhappy and stressed out because I didn't know what my money was doing, right? Like I didn't know where it went. I didn't know why I didn't have any. I'd be it'd be 4 days before Friday, and I would call Steph and say, "Hey, can you lend me $100 just to get me through the next 3 days, just in case? What if I have to buy gas, or what if?" And she's like, "You're gonna try this YNAB," and I did, and I haven't called her for money since I started, and it's been awesome.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
understanding what's happening with your money is incredibly powerful, and I think YNAB is one of those ones that works really well for the people it works well for, and it works really badly for the people it doesn't work for.
Agreed.
But it's about finding your thing.
Do you have, and again, it's just a recommendation. Like I just put out a recommendation for YNAB, and you are right. And I will tell you, the first month I had it, I hated it, and I was going to give it up. It just drove me crazy. I didn't understand why they wouldn't let me budget money 6 months out, which they don't let you do. You're budgeting it right now. And then now I don't think I could give it up if I wanted to. It's kind of a crutch. Do you have something that you like to recommend to your groups or not?
Yeah, so I often work with people with unusual financial circumstances. So they're entrepreneurs or freelancers. And so they don't often have like, here's the money I make and it's the same amount of money every month. And this is the money that goes out, and it's like relatively steady every month. And basically any online tool does not work for those people.
Right.
Maybe one day I'll make one myself. I don't know how to code, so it's a major problem.
Hey, Steph's learning to code, just so you know.
That's good to know. So usually those tools just like don't fit into, I'm not the typical 9-to-5 W-2 lifestyle. We basically create tools specifically for people. So I have templates. There's a couple on my website that are helpful. And then I modify them for clients to make them work really well for that person and that person's financial situation.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
And then you can use it forever, which is great. The online ones that I like the best, I like YNAB actually quite a bit. Pillar works really well for some people. Mint was one of like it might have been the very first one that came out.
It was,
I personally don't like it, but it's really good for just bringing a lot of information together. So some of my clients use Mint, and what we end up doing is downloading data from Mint, and that is helpful. Most people, Mint is just like not flexible enough for.
My sister is the one that made me use Mint originally too. And then I noticed she uses them, calls me, says, "You got to use this." So I'll sign up. And then she's like, "Yeah, I'm done with it. I don't do that anymore." I'm like, ah!
You left me.
Yeah, I'm like, wait. So actually you're right. I gave up Mint. It just didn't work for me. Again, it's one of those situations, which I love. This is what I love about living in the world is there's plenty of options for us as well.
So many options. And I have clients who are obsessed with Mint and use Mint, and I'm like, cool, we're not going to change that. If it works with you, great. We're going to make it work better. But there's no reinventing the wheel that is necessary.
Yeah. Agreed. That's my philosophy in life. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I will take the wheel you have and use it to my own advantage that I need to get done, and that'll be great. So
just zhuzh it up a little bit.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. I feel bad because I've been looking at the time and I'm like, I told you no more than 30 minutes and it's been more than 30 minutes. So, but it's just such great information. You are a wealth of information. I did not realize I should have. So I totally appreciate you taking time with us today. And tell me are you willing to tell me what your website is?
Yeah, so it's verityadvising.com, VERDI, advising.com. So it's like the Italian musician, but actually it's my granddad.
Yeah. Which is that his last name? Was that his last name or his first name?
It was his first name and he hated it, but he's dead, so he doesn't know I used it as my company name.
And I think he'd love it. He'll love it. I mean,
it's enough. It's being very kind to him. He just didn't like it. So that's the website name. I'm also on Instagram at Verity Daily, and I post on there all the time, and I post a lot of tips and tricks. So come and find me. And if you have questions, if you see this and you're like, I didn't understand what the heck she was talking about there, or like she didn't quite finish where I wanted her to go, email me. Can you add my email to like the little
absolutely
information? Yeah, so just email me and ask me. I'm very good at knowing my lines. So if it's a question that I can just respond to you, I will just do that. And if it's something where I'm like, you just asked me a question that's like a 3-part coaching series question, I will tell you.
Yeah.
But I'd rather you ask, because often there are questions that are really easy for me just to answer, and then you have it answered and you can move on, as opposed to like holding that in. Don't hold it in.
Totally get it. Awesome. So yes, I will post, if it's okay with you, those 3 pieces of information: your website,
Perfect.
your Instagram, and your, well, do you want me to post your email? Is that all right with you?
Yeah. Totally.
Okay. Then we're doing it. Look at me.
All the things.
I do love, I mean, information. We've always been in the information age in the last 25 years, but now it's taken on a whole new life of its own. So I love it. I do appreciate your time. I really, really, really do. This is just a topic that I really feel we all struggle with, and we don't know how to deal with it. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.